to some, sometimes they'd ask you a simple thing, but in a very convoluted manner. So the question will be like it will be based on a concept that you have studied, but they will give you unnecessary information in the question. That's mostly what sometimes they do it to make the question.
Cracking.
My voice is cracking. One second. Just 1 second. Okay, is it any better now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Do let me know if it cracks again. Okay, so I was saying that once we are done with December, I want all of you to be super ready with the concepts. It's not no pressure though. You don't have to worry too much about it. But what you have to do is go back to all the notes that you have ever made in my classes or in your schools and just take a look. You don't have to read because it will again be like reading a whole book. But just go over it like chapter 1. Oh, this is the concept of reproduction in plants. And this is microsporangia, megasporangia. I understand this. 7-celled, eight nucleated structure of embryo sac, like this. Just so that in half an hour or 1 hour on a daily basis, you finish one chapter with concepts. Okay, no need to remember facts. That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking that your concept should be there in place so that we can build on it and do more convoluted and complex questions that are asked in entrances. Okay, so by the end of December, you all will be ready for boards for sure, fully ready. But we would like to then spend the January and whatever time we have in February on preparing you for how to solve something faster and get to an answer that will help you in entrances. Right? All of you are planning to give entrance, right? Parker, Aisha, and Rabia.
Sir, which entrance?
The biology, are you planning NEET? Like whichever entrance, what entrances you are planning to give? Are you planning
No,
any
sir,
entrances? Parker is not. Is it, Parker?
Yes, I'm not.
Okay. And Aisha is planning CUET NEET. CUET and NEET. Or is it CUET NEET? Both. Okay, yeah. And what about you, Rabia? Are you there, Rabia? What are your plans?
Yes, sir.
What are your plans with the subject? Are you planning to give entrances? I'm just asking so that I can accordingly plan things in January. So that everyone benefits. So Parker will get even better with things for her boards. I will also keep things that she can benefit from. We will do questions, both subjective and objective, during that month. So that's why I'm asking. So what's your plan, Rabia?
Yes, sir. I'm planning to give NEET.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Fine. So just remember that whatever exam you are giving, whether it is boards or entrances, you are only, limited in entrances by one thing is time and how you manage, how you plan. So entrances are not all about, scoring either full or you fail. It's not that. Just like boards, you can very, very effectively plan that this is my strength and I would like to play on my strength, and this is my weakness, and I will decide how much of my weakness I can convert into, if not strength, into something reasonable, and what aspects I do not understand thoroughly to take a risk, so you always have to do it, because not everything will be in your head with the same clarity, and that's completely fine. Even if you ask me, you know even today when I work with projects, there are certain concepts of, let's say, physics, electronic physics, or something physical chemistry that I'm not very, very thorough with. So I go and ask colleagues, take help, try to understand those concepts. and then try to apply. So I'm just telling you because we all reach certain places after giving entrances, but it shouldn't be on your mind so much that you start judging your abilities by how you perform in one or the other exam. Your abilities only lie with how much you understand, and are you planning good enough that whatever are your strengths, with those strengths where you can end up in your career. Okay, so no pressures, only enjoy learning, and in a systematic manner in January we will be solving questions, and we'll try to get better at it, how fast we can solve questions with what concepts. So that's why start revising concepts now, starting today, 6th December. Every day, go to some random part of your NCERT. And this is the best way to prepare. When students ask me, how should we prepare and where should we begin from? Systematic plan often has more chances of failure, if you ask me, because we know that only we get restricted by the fact that if I will only do chapter 3, which talks about, or chapter 2, which talks about human reproduction, then only I will be able to revise chapter 3, which is reproductive health. But my way of looking at it is, you have already done all of it once, correct? In this whole year, you have understood things, yes or no? So it's like you have watched the whole movie once. Now the best way to see that how much you understood the movie, just randomly go anywhere, take something and try to understand, oh, what is this? Wait, I think this is connected to this part that we studied. But then directly don't go to that part. Try to understand that in a day. Then randomly go to genetics and see if you can connect dots. That's a very good way. If you can, in a random sampling, if you can understand a topic. For example, if I ask you today, do you remember why RNA is single-stranded and DNA is double-stranded? It has nothing to do with ecology, right? What we are doing currently, or growth models, logistic growth model. But if I ask you, do you remember, Aisha, Parker, and Rabia, why DNA is double-stranded and RNA is single-stranded? What is the difference between DNA and RNA in terms of its molecular structure that allows DNA to make double strands and RNA does not allow RNA to make double strands? And if you just remember that, oh, we read that, we understood that RNA is more reactive because it has uracil in place of thymine. DNA has thymine, right? And what does DNA stands for? Deoxyribonucleic acid. And RNA is ribonucleic acid. The only difference is deoxy. So DNA has that one oxygen group less, which is present in RNA. And that oxygen group in RNA, hydroxyl group, makes RNA more reactive and makes DNA less reactive. So less reactivity means more stability. That's why DNA is more stable. Does it make sense? Uracil and thymine are two different bases which are different in DNA and RNA.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you just open your textbook and come to this part, and then you are able to recollect all this information, you are doing very good. Okay. Next day, and you have this whole month to do this. So do this exercise. This will also make you realize how much, how much waters you are in, how much you need to pull yourself out, and you have the whole month to do that. And then we'll build up on it in January. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Parker.
sir, the reason it is also because RNA has an extra hydroxyl group, right?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. RNA has an extra OH, that oxygen along with hydrogen, an extra hydroxyl group makes it more reactive, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that extra oxygen, that's why we call deoxy, deforestation, no forest, right? Demotion.
Yes, sir.
Demotion is opposite of promotion. Similarly, deoxy, which means you remove, there is no, that oxygen is not there. which is there in RNA. That hydroxyl group, OH, is not there in DNA that you are talking about, right? Correct. Great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's quickly, someone can give me a quick recap of ecosystem, what we have discussed till now in ecosystem. I think we did a lot of it from the book also. So you can also open the book and tell me. Yeah. Would you like to go, Parker? What do you remember we talked about? You have things on board. You can open your note, your textbook also, and you can start from anywhere. Basically, mostly start from the beginning, what we started talking about.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, actually, I had gotten disconnected like multiple times last class, and I left like early also. So I would only be able to
Talk
like
about.
talk about like a few things, like start.
Yeah, go ahead. Whatever you think we discussed and you understood, just talk about that, and then we can come to Rabia also. Probably she can give some inputs, and then I will I will bridge everything. Yeah, go ahead, Parker.
Okay, so we started with a chapter ecosystem, and ecosystem. The definition of ecosystem is that it is a functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and the surrounding and with
Right.
the surrounding. So this basically means that like organisms, there's the in an ecosystem they're like organisms, they like interact with themselves and like basically and with the surroundings, and like they survive like that.
Yeah, abiotic,
And
right. And how big or small can be
abiotic.
this ecosystem, right? How big it can
They
be?
can be any size. Like an ecosystem can be a micro ecosystem, like it can be a small, like it can be like a puddle also, it can be a forest also, like it depends.
It can even be a drop of water from a pond, right? A very live pond. If you take a drop of, have you ever done this? Like taken a drop of water from some well or pond and looked at it under the microscope in your schools?
No.
No? So normally it's a fun thing to do. If you see that there is a puddle or somewhere, you see that this water is a little, there are algae and greenish water. I'm not talking about sewer water, but some natural source. Just take some drops of that water and put it under microscope. You will always see something, some microscopic plants or some cells, some algae, dinoflagellates, not dinoflagellates, but anabina, all these things, chlorella. It's very, very common to see these things. So that pond in itself is an ecosystem because organisms are moving, doing their stuff, interacting with each other. Something is eating something, something is photosynthesizing, right? And if you heat and cool that one drop of water, it will affect the organisms in that one drop, right? Because one drop for them is their whole world. Make sense? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now ecosystem, they're like divided in two parts. One is natural ecosystem and the second one is artificial ecosystem. Now by the word itself, we understand that natural ecosystem, like in it the animals or like the living organisms, they're able to survive without any help of humans. And
Right.
this natural ecosystem, they can be divided in two parts again. Now they're called they're terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Now the examples of terrestrial ecosystem are forests, grasslands, and deserts and nurseries. And aquatic ecosystem examples are pond, lake, rivers, and
Right.
so
Right.
and then the
So
second one
whenever
is
we, I'm just giving you a general thing to all of you. Whenever we say that something is divided into two, three, four criterias, always ask yourself, what is the basis of that division? Right? We always do that. And very beautifully, like Parker has described, the first division she talked about of ecosystems is based on whether that ecosystem can sustain on its own, then it will be called natural, or it needs human intervention to sustain, right, Parker? Then it will be called an
Yes.
artificial ecosystem. And then again, she said that within natural, again, it can be divided, but this time the basis is the habitat, the region, the zone. If it is on land, it's called terrestrial ecosystem. And if it is developing inside water, it's called aquatic. And then again, if you just take aquatic, you can further divide it into freshwater ecosystems, saltwater ecosystems, marshy water ecosystems, right? Running water ecosystems, or still water ecosystems. Like rivers are running water ecosystem, but lakes and ponds are not running water. So you can do any number of divisions of ecosystems. It depends on what is the criteria you are using, right?
Yes, sir.
So remember the criteria and don't just mug up. There are 5 types of division or 6 type of division or things like that. So that's good. Yeah, Parker, go ahead.
And then the second type of division is artificial ecosystem. Now this it's like the opposite of natural ecosystem. Like in natural ecosystem, there was no involvement of a human, but like in
Yeah.
artificial ecosystem, now you know the living organisms, like they survive like with human involvement, like
Yes.
like
Like
for
an
example an
aquarium. Yeah.
aquarium. Now the two types of components the two types of components of an ecosystem are again divided into components. Now the first component is abiotic and the second component is biotic.
Mm. Right.
Abiotic.
The word
Yeah,
biota or bio means life, just to give you a hint.
yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
abiotic, with the word abiotic, it includes non-living components inside an ecosystem,
Like,
and like water, light.
yeah, exactly. Light, heat, water, pH, right?
Yes, sir.
Humidity, pressure, all these things. Yes.
And the second component is biotic components.
Mhm.
Now, with the word, we understand biotic that it includes living components of an ecosystem. Now, now living components of an ecosystem. Now they're also divided in 3 parts. This one is producers, one is consumers, and the third one is decomposers. Now, producers are green plants. In They're called.
So a good way to go over this is you would first like to tell that what are the functional components of an ecosystem. So there are 4 things which are very important in every ecosystem to happen, whether it is artificial or it is natural. You need to have some productivity, something getting produced or generated in the ecosystem, and that can only happen by producers. So if you are setting up an aquarium, you always take care of oxygen in that. Now, normally in the ecosystem, oxygen is released by photosynthesizing organisms. Maybe in your aquarium, you do not have photosynthesizing aquariums. So, photosynthesizing organisms. So what you will do, you will put an artificial motor pump that will keep pumping oxygen into the water. So basically you are taking care of that. You are giving it from outside. So productivity is one important thing. Second thing is food, production of food for nutrition. So that is done by producers, what Parker is talking about, like plants and blue-green algae, right? So the green
Yes.
algae, plants, and the photosynthesizing bacteria, they all are producers, primary producers. Then the second thing that an ecosystem should do is decomposition. And she talked about the components that do it are decomposers. So everything becomes complex if you just keep producing it, making it, and once you have reached a complexity, then when organisms die, something has to bring back everything, every molecule, complexes things in the organic matter into basic nutrients. And that decomposers do. They decompose every complex organic matter, right? That's what Parker was talking about. And the third component is energy flow. Now, energy flow happens from producers to consumers, and then from consumers through decomposers, it comes back to producers. So decomposers decompose the complex organic matter, which is present both in producers and in consumers, like herbivores and carnivores both. And the fourth thing, which is important, is the cycling, the periodic cycling of the nutrients. So nutrient cycling, like nutrients should go from one strata of the ecosystem to another, like from soil to plants, from plants to herbivores, from herbivores to omnivores, carnivores, and then to other higher apex predators. So these four components, which are productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling, these four components are very important for ecosystem. And at all these four components, we have organisms that are involved at the level of productivity. Like Parker was saying, they are primary producers. At the level of decomposition, they are decomposers. At the level of energy flow and nutrient cycling, it happens from primary producers to primary consumers to secondary consumers to tertiary consumers, which are the apex predators. And when they even die, then decomposers do their work and bring everything back to primary producers again. Make sense, Parker? Parker, I was just summarizing what you said. Okay, Aisha and Rabia, is it clear to both of you as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and then we talked in detail about productivity, and we discussed, yeah, and we discussed that for productivity there has to be input or some energy that primary producers use, and the constant source of energy for all ecosystems, except for those. And remember, the ecosystem which is at the seabed, at the ocean floor, does not rely on sunlight because sunlight does not reach there. So they have other sources of energy like the geothermal energy, which is the heat from the center of the earth, from the core and the mantle. And we are not going to talk about that in this chapter. So the productivity also can be divided into two parts: primary production, which is what the primary producers produce, and the secondary production, which the consumers produce after eating the producers. Yes, Parker, you have something to say?
No, sir.
Yeah, okay. And then we talked about some units in which they are expressed. And we talked about gross primary production and net primary production. And the difference between the two is that if you remove respiratory losses from gross primary production, you will get net primary production. All these things were clear to all of you? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then towards the end, we did decomposition from the book, from the textbook, NCERT. And I think that part, just open your textbooks and let me know if you have any doubt from there. So in today's class, let's talk about some more concepts. I gave you some homework, right, in the last class. Can anyone tell me what was the homework, Parker?
Yes,
One
sir.
thing, yeah. Do you remember I gave some homework in the last class? We talked
Sir,
about some pyramids. Rabia? Rabia, were you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what did I ask you to do? Something about the pyramid and then about the food chain, something like two things, right? Can you explain that? Just elaborate what was the homework. If you don't remember, it's fine. Like I can. Okay, let me do one thing. It will be a better idea to go over this chapter with NCRT. Do you all have NCRT with you? Your NCRT?
Yes.
Everyone? Parker has. Aisha and Rabia? Do you have your NCRT with you? Yes, no? Am I audible, people?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so Aisha is writing in the chat differences between DFC and GFC, which is detritus food chain and grazing food chain, and inverted pyramid. Why there is one pyramid which is inverted? These two were the homework. Okay, so let me quickly share the screen with you to sharing the textbook. Can you all see the textbook?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. So decomposition we talked about, and all the 5 processes that happen in decomposition: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. No doubts in this. I asked about these 2 food chains. One is, as you can see here, the GFC, which is the grazing food chain. Can you see this? The word grazing food chain.
Yes, sir.
So did you read, anyone read, Parker or Aisha? Did you read what is grazing food chain and what is detritus food chain? Okay, so let's try to understand it like this. So you understand that all the animals or every organism that comes under kingdom Animalia, they depend on plants either directly or indirectly. So even if I ask you, do lion and tigers, do they depend on plants for their survival? What will you say? One,
Yes.
yeah. How does a lion
Because
depends on? Yeah.
because they eat animals like a deer, and the
Mhm.
deer eats the grass. So like if they want to, have eat a deer, the deer should also,
So you mean to say that if the deer don't get the grass, they will not reproduce and increase in number, and then there'll be no deer for the lion, right? So for the
not only deer,
survival, yeah,
like other plant eating species too.
right, exactly. So you're trying to say that carnivorous rely on herbivorous for their food, and there'll be no herbivorous if there are no grasses, right?
Yes,
Or
yes,
plants. So in a way, if you want to keep lions and tigers on the planet, you also have to protect forests. This is what
yes,
the whole the fuss about why protect forest is about. Because if you don't protect forest, it's like a domino effect. You lose one thing, and the next thing in the line also declines, and the next thing after that, and the whole food web collapses. Right? Perfect. So we know that all animals are consumers. Okay, and we also know that animals are heterotrophs. They cannot synthesize their own food. So, and how we decide which is primary consumer? If they only eat plants, they are primary consumer like deer. If they eat other primary consumers, they are sorry. If they eat other animals, then they are secondary consumers. For example, if they're eating deer, like in case of wolf, tigers, lions, and we sometimes in some regions we also have a tertiary consumer, and the tertiary consumer will be eating a carnivorous, okay, that eats herbivorous. That also happens. But in all this hierarchy, the first thing is if we just have a grazing food chain, which means one is eating the other kind of system logic. So grass is producer, like it has shown. Can you see this flowchart here? Grass,
Yes, sir.
producer, eaten by a goat, primary consumer, energy passed on. Goat eaten by a man, okay, secondary consumer. And then man, we are not showing here what it's eaten by, but let's imagine in a jungle or natural or in prehistoric times when humans used to live in jungles as wanderers, they also must have been getting hunted by other apex carnivores, right? Let's say a man got hunted and eaten by a apex predator. But what after that? Nothing, right? Because after that, the apex predator is dying, because the reason we call something as apex predator is that there is nothing above it to kill it. So what happens? So a simple grazing food chain is not able to explain that, right? So what
Yes,
happens?
sir.
Tell me, in a jungle, what happens? What happens to lions and tigers? Who kills them?
Humans.
Humans. Um, then okay. But what do? We are just hunting them for fun, right? We don't rely on them for food. We don't eat lions and tigers. We are
Yes,
hunting
sir.
them either to protect ourselves, to get their territory, or for sport. So I'm not including that. Let's say in a jungle where humans are not living, tiger and lions are the apex predators. So what's happening to them? Who kills them? How?
No one.
No one, which means they live forever?
No.
No. Everything that is born has to die, except for some kind of jellyfish. If you are not a jellyfish, you are biologically mortal. Some organisms are biologically immortal. It simply means that without any external factor, they cannot die on their own. But most can, like lion and tigers, can die of old age. In fact, the way a apex predator is designed in its physiology and evolution is that if it cannot hunt, if it's not the strongest, it will die of starvation and old age. So lions and tigers mostly die because they are old and they are unable to hunt, so they cannot get food, and then they die. What happens after they die? What do you think? Do you think some organisms come and eat their flesh?
Yes, other carnivores, yes.
Carnivores? What kind of carnivores?
Their own breed, lions or tigers, maybe.
Mostly it has been seen that lions and tigers do not eat lions and tigers meat, because that's called cannibalism, eating your own species. And apex predators also don't eat a meat that's not hunted by them often. If they find something dead already, they don't eat it. But there are other
The,
organisms. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. You're going in the right direction, I guess.
the body is infested with maggots, like maggots start to eat the flesh.
That's one way. That's right, and that's one way to think about it. That other things starts. You're going in the direction of detritivorous, but before that, there are organisms that eat carcass and dead bodies, like vultures, right? Vultures, they find anything dead and they finish it, right?
Yeah.
Other birds, hyenas, or these opportunistic carnivores that they don't hunt themselves often, but they rely on someone's leftover. Yeah. But some way or the other, the body gets disintegrated, eaten up by some organisms, but still a major chunk is left. Bones are left. How are they destroyed or disintegrated?
They get decomposed in the soil.
By magic?
Uh, like the winds, they probably hit the soil.
Winds. Even the
No,
body just vanishes in thin air.
no, like the winds, when the winds because of the winds, the soil comes above the bones.
So it's get buried, you're saying. But that
Yeah,
will take
exactly.
like hundreds of years, slowly. And wind will not just blow in one direction, not to bury the body.
Yes.
Arey Baba, there are detritivorous, there are bacteria, there are fungi, there are earthworms, other sorts of insects that start eating up the flesh slow, and it all gets decomposed, right? So what
Yes.
the grazing food chain does not include, because the name says grazing. One eats something, the other eats that thing, and something else eats the third thing. So it's grazing based, it's eating based. So it goes in one direction, and then it ends at the apex predator. But in nature, the detritus food chain, it begins with dead organic matter. So where the first food chain ends, this ends with apex predators. And I ask you a question, what if it's dead? That's where the detritus food chain begins. If it is dead, then that dead organic matter, decomposers will come and start disintegrating and decomposing it. And then that becomes a detritus. And these organisms which rely on dead organisms or rotting matter are called saprotrophs. Do you remember sapro?
Yes, sir.
Saprophytes? What does the word sapro means?
Uh, to, to decompose.
Dead and decaying. Yeah, decomposing, rotting. All these terms can be used. So saprotrophs are organisms that rely on this kind of dead matter, and they secrete enzymes. Yes, Parker, go ahead.
Sir, if in the detritus food chain, the earthworms and the maggots, they all they disintegrate the bones, then isn't that a cycle than a food chain, a chain? Because now later these earthworms, they're eaten by secondary consumers.
Exactly. That's a very beautiful point, right? And you're right. That's why when you go in higher studies, when you are studying ecosystem as an ecologist, if you're a scientist, these are just basic things. We are teaching you things which are the fundamental basis. Like I tell you, in physics, you must have heard of laws of Newton, right? Laws of
Yes,
mechanics. But you can ask, does it work? So we say that, light travels in a straight line and it is the fastest thing. But even that can be bent at many instances in universe. So those are higher concepts. Similarly, like in a black hole, even light cannot escape a black hole. It will just get woofed inside the black hole by the strong gravity. Similarly, in biology, when we talk about chain, a chain looks like a long single chain, right? With monomers attached one after the other. But actually, the ecosystem is more complex and it's like a web. You understand? So we call it eco web or food web, where each chain is connected to some other chain at any place. Like you said, if the lion dies and if the decomposers are decomposing it, the decomposers themselves are small organisms, and some consumer can eat decomposer and kill them also. Like birds can eat earthworm. And if the same bird dies and falls on the ground, the decomposers can start disintegrating its body also. So you can see that these two chains, grazing food chain and detritus food chain, are not exclusive, like we are teaching here in the notebook, in the textbook. They actually are connected at multiple levels with each other. So instead of understanding it as a chain, you should understand the whole ecosystem as a web. Everything is connecting everywhere. But it will be very complex to start with a web. How will I explain it to you? So hence we start with simple units. That one way to look at it is a grazing food chain method or a grazing food chain concept. The other way is detritus food chain concept, and both are in the nature at the same time, at the same place. Right, Parker? So that's a very, very good point, beautiful point.
yes, sir.
Yeah, but whenever we study science, when we are focusing on one concept, we understand that first and then move to other, and later on the whole idea of understanding the world is connecting dots. Like I taught you about DNA in some chapter, then I taught you about reproduction and formation of gametes in some other chapter, then I taught you about inheritance of genes in some other chapter. But you can connect all of it and say that it's happening, everything is happening parallelly at the same time when a male and a female partner copulates and over sexual reproduction produces a new embryo or a new baby. All of these is happening in that system, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I was saying that how do these decomposers work? They secrete enzymes that simply break down complex matter into simpler nutrients, and then they can just absorb it. Okay. So another thing is, look here. See, anyways, your book also comes to food chain. It says here food web, right? So what it is saying, would you like to read this paragraph? This one in an ecosystem. Parker, can you read this for us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In
And read
aquatic
till food web only. Read till food web. Yeah.
in an aquatic ecosystem, GFC is a major
Conduit.
conduit for
Conduit simply
energy.
means a way or a vector or something. Yeah.
GFC is a major conduit for energy flow. As against this, in a terrestrial ecosystem, a much larger fraction of energy flows through the detritus food chain than through the GFC. Detritus food chain may be connected with the grazing food chain at some levels. Some of the organisms of DFC are prey to the GFC animals, and
Like you
in a
said,
natural.
it is answer to your question. Some of the organisms of DFC, which is detritus food chain, like an earthworm, are prey to GFC animals, like a bird. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And in a natural ecosystem, some animals like cockroaches, crows, etc., are omnivorous. These natural interconnection of food chains make it a food web.
Right. And what is omnivorous? A new term here. Carnivorous, herbivorous. What is omnivorous?
Who eat both,
Both. Right. Both what? Who eat
both
both
plants.
herbivorous and carnivorous?
No, both producers and
And
primary
consumers.
consumers.
Yes. They can even eat secondary consumers. Not a problem. Crows can even eat, flesh of humans if you give them. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So this paragraph talks about a lot of things. The most important thing that you have to take from this paragraph is why, like you asked, if everything is connected, food web, then why are we still studying these two individual chain components? Because we see normally that in an aquatic system, aquatic ecosystem, GFC is predominant and there are no or very less detritivores in water. If you think about detritivorous organisms work in a terrestrial ecosystem like earthworms, other insects that decompose um, organic matter, bacteria in the soil, or fungi. Fungi cannot be inside the ocean, right? So all these things which are detritivorous are mostly in terrestrial ecosystem. So aquatic ecosystem majorly, it's not like totally, there are exceptions again, but majorly functions as a GFC model, grazing food chain model. Okay. And the terrestrial ecosystem majorly functions as a DFC model, detritus food chain model. Just write these two lines so that you are not confused. Now you understood why we are studying this?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so this is clear. Next thing is trophic level. If what is a trophic level? It's simply the word trophic is always associated with nutrition or food. Trophic level is where, what is the place of an organism in the food chain that it belongs to. So organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain, and that is known as their trophic level. So these are the four trophic levels. Tertiary consumer producers being the first level. Okay. Phytoplanktons, grass, trees, all the photosynthetic organisms comes here. Primary consumers were the zooplanktons. So zooplanktons feed on phytoplanktons. What is a plankton? Anyone knows plankton? Mariam, Aisha, Rabia. What is a plankton? Have you heard of this term before? A term called plankton. Do you know
Yes,
what
sir.
what does it mean? The term plankton. Mhm. Come on, you know it. You know where have you studied plankton? Oh, yeah, we have an answer in the chat. Um, Microorganisms in water bodies. Okay. Everyone agrees with that answer? Does it make sense to anyone?
It's
And
like
why don't, yeah, it's like, come on, come on.
it's uh, I think around 75% correct.
Yeah, 75% is more than we need. Where does this concept of 100% and 75% correct comes from? People are too much into worrying about marks all the time, no? It's fine. It's good to worry about that because that's important. I'll not discourage you from doing that, but just like I said, don't judge yourself. I'm giving 75% correct answer, so maybe I'm not good as the one student who gave 100% of the correct answer. In fact, I'll tell you, the one who's giving 100% correct answers all the time, maybe the one who has just remembered all those answers. But the one who's giving a 50% correct answer maybe understands science much better. Okay? No one knows everything, let me tell you. Not even the ones who check your papers, us. Not even the ones who teach you, like me. I don't know everything. There are many things I still go to, you know, students I teach or in the university, my juniors, even undergrads I collaborate with, I learn from them. So 75% is a good one. So why don't we call them just microorganisms in water bodies, like Aisha has written? What does the word zooplankton and phytoplankton means, and where does it comes from? Rabia, your thoughts? Yeah, Parker is back. Yes, Parker. I was saying that 75% is good, much better than what we need. So what do you think
Sir,
is the answer? Yeah, go ahead.
so your voice is cracking.
Okay, just 1 second. Is it still cracking?
No, sir.
Okay, perfect. So tell me, what was your answer? What were you thinking about?
It's like all organisms in water, right?
All organisms in water. Hmm, you mean a fish is also a plankton? Okay, think about it. I'm giving this small thing as a homework. I can give you the right answer, but I think more than giving the right answer, the better way will be if you go and try to find what is the right answer. Or if there is a right answer, like Parker said, can we just not say everything in the water is a plankton? Can we or can we not? I don't know. So let's. So you have to tell me what is a zooplankton and what is a phytoplankton, and why we call them planktons, zoo or phyto. Okay, but just for now, remember that zoo phytoplanktons come are. This is also a hint. Phytoplanktons are producers. Zooplanktons are consumers. Okay. The third level is secondary consumer. So these are heterotrophs that eat other heterotrophs. So the moment we say consumers, we have entered into the territory of heterotrophs. Okay, they are all heterotrophs. All consumers are heterotrophs. Is that okay, everyone? Is it clear, Rabia, Aisha? All consumers are heterotrophs. That's the basic fundamental rule. Okay, cool. So secondary consumers are just heterotrophs that eat other heterotrophs. Tertiary consumers are again heterotrophs that eat other carnivores. Okay. So a lion can also eat a cow. It can also eat other organisms which eat cow. Okay, so that's there. Now, just before Parker popped out due to signal issues, Parker, I gave an homework that you have to look for yourself that why we call something as a zooplankton and phytoplankton and what does these terms actually mean. Okay.
Sir, can you repeat? Your voice was cracking.
Oh, is my voice also cracking for Aisha and Rabia? Can you just confirm once? Because I have shifted to a network. Is it cracking
No, sir.
for no? Okay, Aisha is saying no, and Rabia is also saying no. So I think Parker, it's more probably your network than mine because I've done everything I can to. Yeah, but I will repeat the question. The question is, what are zooplanktons and phytoplanktons, and why do we call them planktons? And where does the word zoo and phyto come from? Okay, Parker, is it clear? I guess Parker is having some issues with.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Now, so I'm just going through some concepts which are important. Now, levels are clear. So these are the place that every organism holds or occupy in the food chain. Where do you come in the food chain? And that's decided on the basis of whether you are getting eaten by something or whether you eat something else. Whether you produce your own food or whether you rely on the food which is produced by the consumers or someone else. Okay, perfect. Now, there's a concept of something called standing crop. Can you see here standing crop? It looks like it's an agricultural term because we know crops, but the concept is applicable to all organisms in every trophic level. So standing crop is simply the combined total mass of all living organisms, okay, in a particular area. So that is the standing crop of that area. That's called the total biomass. You can also talk about standing crop or biomass of a trophic level. That's also possible, and people do study that. Now, biomass can be of two types: dry biomass and fresh biomass. Now, fresh biomass is where every organism is living and functional. And we know that every organism who's living and functional will contain a lot of water content in its body. Yes or no? Do you agree? People, for example, if we talk about humans, we know that human body is how much of our mass just comes from water? Any idea? Parker? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand what is a dry weight and a fresh weight?
No, sir. I think I got
Disconnected?
disconnected.
Okay, no, but so dry means no water content in the organic matter, and fresh is anything with a water content. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
So there are two ways to study biomass. Either you say that the dry biomass, the total dry biomass of this ecosystem is XYZ, or you take into consideration all the water content that the biomass contains. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So that's standing crop, the total biomass in a given area. Okay, cool. And this just talks about energy flow that you already know. The 10% law. What is the 10% law? This comes as a question in boards. Write down. Define or explain in brief the 10% law of energy flow. The 10% law of energy flow. Yes, people. I have already taught you this. So tell me, what is 10% law?
It's like in a food in trophic levels.
Mhm,
In one in each step of a food chain, the food
mhm,
energy it transfers from one trophic level to the higher trophic level,
mhm.
and it's like 90% of the trophic level is sorry, the 90% is
Energy.
of energy is lost, and it leaves like 10%, and that 10% is again transferred to the higher level, and
Mhm.
again 90% of that 10% is of
Lost.
energy is lost.
Yeah, where
So
is it lost? You're right. You are perfectly right when you're defining it. But where do you think this energy is lost? So if a plant produced that energy and if a herbivore ate all that plant, why not all that energy is stored in the herbivore, and then when a carnivore eat it, it goes to the carnivore? Where does it get lost in the whole process? You're perfectly true, it gets lost. See, it get lost in respiration. The first thing is the organism is also surviving, right? Respiratory losses is a great major source of loss. Plus the organism will also be maintaining its own body, right? So it's growing, it's developing, repair, it's fighting diseases. So Aisha says the decrease of 10% energy from one trophic level to another is called 10% law. No, it's not decrease of 10% energy. It's the passing on of 10% energy. So you're right in the second sentence where you say at each level, 90% is consumed for their life processes like respiration, reproduction, etc. Perfect. Perfect. So you should write it more carefully. If you write this, someone can just deduct marks and say that, oh, you didn't write it correct. Do you understand, Aisha? Yeah, correct. So you should write the decrease of 90% of energy from one trophic level to another, and only 10% passes on is called the 10% law. And this only happens between trophic levels. At the level of nature, like all the energy is coming from sun in an ecosystem, what is the percentage that gets transferred from sun to the primary producers? What is that
100.
percentage? Sorry,
100.
1%. Remember? So out of all the sunlight that falls on Earth, only 50% is PAR, photo activated, right? Photosynthesis activation radiation. You remember PAR? Photosynthetically active radiation, PAR, is just 50%. And out of that 50% also, most of is not trapped by plants, only 1%. Let me go where it was. It was shown somewhere. Sorry.
Sir, why is it like only 1% trapped?
By plants to do photosynthesis, because rest of it goes in heating up the environment, taken up by the gases, even heating up the plant and animal body also. So not all the energy goes for production of food. So it's 1%. See here. Here, see. So an ideal pyramid of energy, it says, observe that primary producers convert only 1% of the energy in the sunlight available to them into net primary productivity. So most of it gets lost at the level of primary producers only to maintain their own systems, maintain their temperature, etc., etc. Does it make sense
Yes,
to
sir.
all of you? Yeah. So from a biotic component, which is sun, when it first comes to the biotic component, which is plants, the first primary producers, only 1% rule is followed. But within the trophic level, 10% rule is followed. Sun is not a part of trophic level, right? Sun is something completely outside. Make sense, everyone? So these are some concepts you should have in mind. Yeah, this was it. But before that, we were on this part, yes. So you can see here from sun, most of it goes as heat to warm up the atmosphere, warm up the planet, the water, the plants, the animals, everything gets warmed up. 50% falls on plants directly, and out of that, only 1% of the total sunlight energy is used by plants to fix it into food. Then again, when organisms eat it, again there is release of heat. So can you see the arrow showing release of heat every time? Between
Yes.
every, how does that happen? When a bird is eating a insect, a caterpillar, why is some energy being released as heat? I don't understand that. Do you understand that? I mean, I do understand that. I'm just asking you so that we can discuss. So there's an answer to it, and you know the answer. How do we radiate out energy in terms of heat? What do you think? Of course. So whenever we eat anything, what happens? It goes in the body, get digested. Then what happens? Class 11th digestion chapter. It gets absorbed by the intestine. Absorption. Then what happens?
It's
The
broken down.
perfect. That it's broken down before absorption, right? The first is digestion. That's breaking down. Then you mean inside the cell also it's broken down, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. So that is what I was asking. That's called respiration, remember? It's and
Yes, sir.
it's broken down in the presence of
Oxygen.
right. And what comes out as a byproduct of this reaction?
Carbon dioxide.
And heat. Whoever is doing, remember, if you break down anything, it is just like we were talking in the beginning. Combustion is, oxidation inside our body is just like combustion, burning anything outside in the environment. When you are breaking down anything with the use of oxygen, heat will be generated, right? Even in respiration, heat is generated. Do you agree? That's why
Yes.
when you are doing exactly opposite, when you are making glucose, when you are breaking glucose, heat is released. When you are making glucose, who makes glucose? Can we make glucose in our body?
Yes.
No, if we could make glucose in our body, the life was so sorted. I would not be teaching you, you would not be studying. We were just both lying in the sun and making glucose. No need to study, no need to do anything. Only plants can make glucose. Photosynthesis, starch, right? Glucose is a form of carbohydrate only, no? Connecting the dots, people. Only primary producers can synthesize it. So when you have to synthesize, you need heat energy, sunlight. But when you are breaking it down, you release heat energy. And that's how we keep our bodies warm. Is it clear? Make sense, people? Aisha, Parker, Rabia?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Perfect. So the heat that you see at every level here is coming from?
Sunlight.
No, it's coming from the organism that's releasing it heat. At every trophic level, every organism releases some heat when they're eating. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
We release heat out when we are doing things in our system. So does other organisms. They all release heat out. Okay? During cellular metabolism, it's called. Now I think you got the term you were looking for. Cellular metabolism. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, now let's come to ecological pyramids, and this is the most conceptual part of this chapter and the last part also that we will discuss and finish this chapter. And I gave you the homework regarding this, but let's first talk about, let's do one thing. Let's do it like this. So Rabia, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rabia, can you explain to us this first pyramid 12.4? You can read what the legend says, and then you can start. So the legend, read the legend first, and then you can take 2 to 3 minutes if you want in silence to understand it yourself, because we have discussed it in the last class. So I just want you to summarize it, and then start with reading the legend first and then explaining the pyramid. Okay, Rabia? And don't worry, it's not like there's nothing wrong or right. If you miss saying something, I'll pitch in and say that. Are you in, Rabia? Will you do that?
Sure, sir.
How much time do you need?
Uh, like 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So let me give everyone this homework then. Everyone can hear me? Aisha and Parker, you both also can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you see the figure 12.4, the pyramid of numbers? Yeah. Rabia is going to explain it to us. Okay, first thing. And then Parker, you have to explain the pyramid of biomass, the second, 12.4b. I'm giving both of you. Okay, Parker,
Yes, sir.
I'm giving both of you 3 minutes each, and your time starts now. And Aisha, you can also independently, since you're not able to speak up in the class, but independently just write 5 lines about each pyramid. What is your summary of the pyramids? Okay, Aisha, you're doing that? Perfect. Then we can tally that what they were saying and what you have understood. Are they same? Are they different? Have they missed some point? etc., etc. Okay, Rabia, whenever you are ready, okay, you can start.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rabia, go ahead. Perfect.
Yes. In this pyramid, we can see that the number of, like, we can see the producers, the primary consumers, the secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers. And on the right hand side, we can see the number of individuals, that is the
Mm-hmm.
number of producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that the number of producers is higher as compared to the primary consumers, and so on. Like the number of individuals in each level, it decreases.
It decreases. Okay, as you go up the trophic level, that's what you mean to say.
Yeah, like from the producer to the tertiary consumer, like it goes from a big number to a small number.
And do you think it makes any sense? Like why is that happening? Biologically, do you think that it makes sense? What does this signify? So these are just numbers. Someone can say that, okay, we get some numbers. What's special about it? Does it make any sense to you, this information? What is the context? Why that number is decreasing? What do you think? Or is it just a fact? We should not question it. So this is what happens. What is your opinion? Does it make sense to you? Can you apply it and explain using some relevant terms? Because primary, tertiary numbers.
Um, okay.
Mhm.
In the producers,
Just take any ecosystem, right? Because all these things talk about in an ecosystem. So you take any ecosystem and just explain this pyramid to me. Aisha has also given her written summary. That's very impressive, Aisha. Thank you. Hope you could speak up and talk about this answer yourself because it's very, very beautiful. But yeah, let's hear from Rabia first. Yes, Rabia. Rabia, go ahead. Just take any ecosystem as an example and try to explain your point, because since it was your point and it's a good point, I just don't want to ruin it by giving the right answer. I think you should have the glory, Rabia. We also discussed it, right? Something about it. So what are producers? This 5842000. What does it tells you about? So producers
Producers
are, yeah,
are
perfect.
mainly plants.
Right. So does it tell you the number of plants in a forest?
No.
No. Okay. Then what is it? What is this number then?
Uh,
Now you're thinking I should have said yes.
yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
confused a little bit.
Yeah. So what's the confusion? Let's talk about it. So point is we never talk about our confusion, hence we stay confused. What's the confusion? What is this 5842000? I'm sure it's not a telephone number. It's something. It's the number. It says the pyramid of numbers. Now, what number it possibly could be? I'm asking, do you think it's the number of organisms? What does Parker has to say? Parker, do you think it's number of organisms? That's Rabia's confusion. So let's help her with her confusion so that she can explain this pyramid. Many things that look simpler in textbook are actually not, and that's completely okay. There's no shame or there's no embarrassment in discussing that over and over again. These are concepts. If it was not important, it was not in your textbook. So if anyone tells you what a dumb question, always tell them back, if it was so dumb, why is it in the textbook? Why are we all studying it? Yes, Rabia, do you think it's number of organisms?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So do you think the primary, the producer 5842000 is the number of trees in a forest?
Um, yeah, most probably.
And then taking this into account, how can you explain PC number, SC number, and TC number? Then if these are plants, 5842, which means 58,42,000 trees are there in a forest. Then what? Then this number of plants, which are producers, can sustain 7,08,000 consumers. And what are consumers? Primary consumers?
Who eat the producers?
Right. Like, can I say deer, cattle, all the
Yes.
herbivores in that jungle? So if a jungle has 58.4 lakh plants, it can sustain around 7 lakh herbivores. Correct, Parker? Is that
Yes.
what the pyramid is trying to tell you? Now, these numbers cannot, like, may or may not be exactly applicable, but somewhere give or take a little bit up and down, right? But around the same. And then what does it
Sir?
tell? Yes, Parker.
Sir, what do you mean by sustain?
Sustain means live in general. So you said that consumers feed on producers, right?
Yes, sir.
So if I try to make an ecosystem where I have 20 deer, or people who actually rear or culture, or what do you call, breed cows, goats, what do they do daily? Have you heard of any? Have you seen any shepherds who breed a lot of lambs or sheep or goats or cows or buffaloes? In the farm, what do they do? What is their job, daily job like? Suppose I have 20 deers and I want to breed them. But first thing, every day for those 20 deers, how much food I have to bring in?
Like,
A lot, right? A lot of plants and leaves and grasses I have to bring so that they all feed on it, right?
yes,
So that's what sustaining is. You understood?
yes,
So in a jungle, in general, if a jungle needs to have, or if a jungle has around 7 lakh primary consumers in number, then there should be around 58 lakhs producers, right? Because then the producers will be able to produce the biomass or the organic matter in terms of leaves, fruits, stems that these consumers will eat and survive, right?
yes. But sir,
Mhm.
if like for example, the primary consumer eats the primary producer and the secondary consumer eats the primary consumer, shouldn't
Mhm.
it be like an inverted triangle, not an upright triangle, because the lower level is decreasing because they're eating?
No, but this is the pyramid of numbers, right? You are right. In terms of what you are trying to say is um, less organisms are eating more, right? 7 lakh
Yeah.
primary consumers are eating 58 lakhs producers. But the thing here is, this is a pyramid of numbers as you go up the trophic level. And up means going away from primary producers. Okay, so that's why it's upright. Because it's showing you a number, not how much they are eating. The number of them, they themselves. So the biggest
Yes.
number will be of the producers. Less than that will be primary consumers. Less than that will be secondary consumers, and very less number will be tertiary consumers. Perfect. Parker, would you like to go on and talk about pyramid of biomass? And you can also tell me how is it similar or different than the pyramid of numbers that Rabia was explaining. Over to you, Parker.
Yes, sir. The pyramid of biomass, it the right side, the dry weight, it represents the whole pyramid. It basically represents the total weight of organisms uh, in the trophic levels.
Mhm.
Now we can see that in the primary the primary producers, we can see that the dry weight is the most. So we can see that it is an upright pyramid. It is an upright pyramid. So in the primary producer, it is 809 uh, kg meter in meter raised to minus 2.
Yeah,
So
kilogram per meter square. It is the area. So if you go on a jungle and you take an area of 1 meter square, okay, or you take the full jungle area and then you divide it by the number of meter square it is. So per unit area, which is 1 meter square, how much kg of mass of producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer you will find likely. Yes, go ahead, Parker.
then in the primary consumers, it's the weight is the dry weight. It is again decreasing. The pyramid is basically showing how there's a decrease in the biomass at higher trophic levels.
Mhm.
Uh,
And why is that biomass decreasing? And can it be related to the pyramid above, the pyramid of numbers?
yes, because
This is a logical question. Yes. You know the answer. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your answer, and I'm sure that you will reach the right answer. How can it be related to the pyramid above? Rabia, you can help Parker because she also pitched in when you dropped out due to network issues. How do you think what Parker is trying to explain with the pyramid of biomass can be related to pyramid of numbers in the ecosystem?
It sustains, like the primary consumer is basically sustaining, like
Go ahead. You're right. You're right. Sustaining on what?
biomass.
So what is the relation between biomass and numbers? Biomass and number of individual. What is the relationship? Simple. It's a direct relationship, right? Dry weight simply means you have dried the organism or removed the water content, or you are not taking into account the water content. So when we say that 70% of human weight is because of the water. So let's say if my body mass is when we're talking about mass, I'm not talking about weight, let's say, or weight only. Let's say my body weight is 60 kgs, for example. Now, in that 60 kgs, if 70% is water, what is my dry weight? If every cell of my body loses all the water, then what is the dry weight of that mass, that fresh weight that I have? Yeah, go ahead.
30%.
30%. And then I have to find 30% of 60 kgs, right? So 10% is 6 kgs. So my dry weight will come out to be 18 kgs only. So a 60 kg organism, if it's 30%, 70% water, then the dry weight will be just 18 kgs. Similarly, if there are around 6 million, 60 lakh producers or 60 lakh plants, then the dry weight per meter square will only come out to be 809 kg. And here also you can see the same trend. As you go up the trophic level, what do you see?
It is again decreasing.
Yeah, and it is also decreasing in the same proportion. It's not like producers were 809 and then primary consumers were 400. Do you see the decrease?
Yes.
From 809 to 37. There also, in case of numbers, there were around 60 lakh producers and just 7 lakh consumers. Very big decrease. Proportional decrease, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is where you can draw parallels between these two. So pyramid of biomass and pyramid of numbers in an ecosystem follow the same trend. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does it make sense to Aisha and Rabia as well? Give me a thumbs up if you are clear. Aisha, Rabia, a thumbs up. So often we just don't pay attention, and when this question comes, you realize it was a very simple question, but I messed it up. Now let's come to the homework which I gave you. Look at this pyramid, 12.4C. Parker, would you like to read the legend?
The legend?
Yeah, the legend, 12.4C. For the figure, what does that legend say?
Oh. Inverted pyramid of biomass, small standing crop of phytoplankton supports large standing crop of zooplankton.
Hmm. Now it is again a pyramid of biomass, right? The first pyramid was also a pyramid of biomass, but on grassland ecosystem. And grassland is a terrestrial ecosystem, right?
Yes.
And it makes sense, we understood. But the third one is an inverted pyramid, but it is still the pyramid of biomass, but it is about planktons. And where are planktons? Are they in the terrestrial ecosystem or in the aquatic ecosystem?
Aquatic ecosystem.
Right, they are in the aquatic ecosystem. Perfect. So, though one thing you have to figure out still is what are planktons, but let me tell you, in the aquatic ecosystem, the relationship is very, very interesting because phytoplanktons are or the organisms which are capable of doing photosynthesis, or they are the equivalent of producers of the ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem. And zoo, the word zoo comes from zoology. What is zoology means? Or when
Study
you go
of
to a zoo, yeah, study of
plants.
animals. The word zoo means animals. Okay. So
Yeah.
zoology is the study of animals. Botany is the subject that deals with plants. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Does
I got
it?
confused.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Makes sense. But now does it make sense? You will not forget it.
No, sir. Yes, I'll not forget.
Okay. So zoology or the word zoo is associated with animals. So zooplankton are the animal equivalent of this ecosystem, which means they are consumers. They cannot produce, but they rely on phytoplanktons that are producers to produce things. Now, people thought, okay, makes sense. So just like terrestrial ecosystem here also, it might be following the same rule that you need a lot of producers to sustain a lot of um, to sustain a less number of consumers. But indeed, that was not the case. Now, how? There they saw that a small number of phytoplanktons can support a larger number of zooplanktons, which are primary consumers. And how do you think that can happen? What is the um, logic that you think can explain this? So normally you are thinking like this. You need hundred thousands of plants to make a population of 20 deers survive. Under what condition do you think, under what logic do you think just few producers can sustain large number of consumers? What do you think?
Sir, can you please repeat?
Under what conditions do you think that few producers, like here, the phytoplanktons, just 4 phytoplanktons can sustain around 21 zooplanktons? So under what condition few phytoplanktons can make more zooplanktons survive? And yeah, let me give you one hint. Uh, if we are you three, Aisha, Parker, and Rabia, okay, each needs, so each of you needs 3 burgers a day to survive, okay, which means 3 of you will need 9 burgers a day to survive. Make sense? Do you understand that,
Yes,
Parker?
sir.
Okay, so here the ratio is 9 burgers and 3 of you. So 9 is a bigger number and 3 is smaller. Now I'm saying there is just 2 something, or let's start with this. So there are just 3 capsules, very, very tiny, small capsules, and all 3 of you can survive, taking each capsule, 1 capsule each. So here, 3 capsules are making 3 of you survive, which is more of like, then the pyramid won't be upright. Or even less than 3, I'll say. Let's say there is just 2, which can make all 3 of you survive. How? What should that capsule contain? And there is a reason we call capsules as capsules. What does burger give you when you eat it?
Nutrition.
Energy to survive, right?
Yes.
Right. If the same amount of energy can be provided by a very tiny capsule filled with all that nutrient, like super saturated with energy, you will still survive, right?
Yes.
Make sense? Do you understand that? Now imagine a situation similar to that. Very few producers are capable of producing so much of energy that a large number of primary consumers can survive on it. And that only happens in this very special case of aquatic ecosystem where zooplanktons and phytoplanktons interact with each other. Okay?
Sir, is it just because 4 phytoplanktons is just enough for 21 zooplanktons?
On an average. So basically, 21 zooplankton, one zooplankton eats one phytoplankton, and it doesn't have to, it gets so much of energy that it can reproduce also, become 2 from 1, and also can sustain for longer without eating more. Do you understand that? That's how.
Yes.
It's not like all 21 sit and cut the 4 into 21 small pieces and eat. That's not the concept. It's average ratio. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Because there is one rule in nature that never changes. So the pyramid of biomass can be inverted, because here the biomass is low, but per unit biomass, the energy component is very high. So one thing that can never have an inverted pyramid is energy. So energy, the pyramid of energy, write this line down. The pyramid of biomass in the aquatic ecosystem, the pyramid of biomass in, and this is a question that has come in entrances. Pyramid of biomass in the aquatic ecosystem at the levels of zooplankton and phytoplankton. The pyramid of biomass in the aquatic ecosystem at the level of phytoplanktons and zooplanktons is inverted pyramid. Is inverted pyramid. Because a smaller biomass, because a smaller biomass of phytoplanktons a smaller biomass of phytoplanktons can sustain a larger biomass of zooplanktons can sustain a larger biomass of zooplanktons by providing them enough energy, by providing them enough energy. Okay, make sense? By providing them enough energy. Make sense, everyone? Yes, no, something will be very helpful.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And in the continuation, in the same line, you can write down another concept, that the pyramid for energy flow, the pyramid for energy flow or energy in general can never be inverted in any ecosystem. It always has to be upright, whether it is a aquatic ecosystem, even in this case, where a small number of phytoplankton sustain a high number of zooplanktons. If you make the energy pyramid, this the four phytoplanktons will have much more energy than 21 zooplanktons. Does it make sense, everyone? Aisha, Parker, and Rabia?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the pyramid of energy can never be inverted in an ecosystem. That has always to be upright. Whereas the pyramid for biomass can be inverted in some special cases like this one. Okay, cool. So I think with this, yeah, right. See, look here. Can you read this? Parker, can you read the paragraph that I have highlighted?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Pyramid of energy is always upright, can never be inverted, because when energy flows from a particular trophic level to the next trophic level, some energy is always lost as heat at each step. Each bar in the energy pyramid indicates the amount of energy present in each trophic level in a given time or annually per unit area.
Yes. So that's it. So when researchers got to know, oh, the pyramid of biomass is actually inverted. We do not find in the ocean as many phytoplanktons as there are zooplanktons. But how is it possible? Isn't it a paradox? Then this question was answered through energy model, that it's not a paradox. It is possible because normally in terrestrial ecosystems, we don't see producers being very energy rich and not and consumers being like consumers getting all the energy without loss or very less loss. So a lot of energy is lost uh, in both the ecosystems. But the biomass also of, because for plants, if you see, every part of plant is not edible, right? Whether it is a herbivore, have you seen a deer going and eating the whole tree or the whole plant? It only eats the leaves, right? Or some
Yes.
fruits or some special tender areas that it can eat. It doesn't eat the whole plant from root to stem and leaves. So that's why the biomass always have to be more, because all the biomass is not taken up by the next level. But in case of phytoplanktons and zooplanktons, they found that the biomass is less at the level of producers, but the energy component is very high. So when they made the energy pyramid, they realized, oh, okay, so this is upright and this can never be inverted, and that explains the whole situation. So it's not a paradox. It's nothing out of the bounds of logic and science. In fact, it is very logical that what matters is energy. And even if a small biomass can provide a large energy, it works. The pyramid can be inverted for biomass, but still be upright for energy. And with this, we finish this chapter. So ecosystem, just go back and revise today only before you go to bed, and just look at all the concepts. And starting today, start the random sampling of your NCERT and finish it in this December month. Okay, Aisha, Parker, and Rabia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll see you all. I'll see you all in the next class. And since you have some time before the next class, please keep your doubts also ready for the next class from any chapter that you find doubts in when you are doing random sampling. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Parker. Go ahead.
sir, can you please explain stratification?
Yes, sure. Stratification. So it's simple. See, in every ecosystem, whether it's terrestrial or aquatic, we know that there is a um, vertical distribution of species. That's called so making of strata. Like, let's take an example of an ocean. Okay, aquatic system, a river, lake, or an ocean. So fish and organisms that require more sunlight or are dependent on surface or often come to surface to breathe, like turtles and other aquatic organisms. You will find them in the upper strata of the ocean, like near the surface. Okay, because they also rely on sunlight. But organisms that do not rely on sunlight or do not have to come to surface, they live in the lower strata. So what do they feed on? They feed on the organisms which live in the upper strata. They come up, hunt, and go down. And if you go to ocean floor, you will find organisms like stingrays and jellyfish and other kind of uh, starfish, etc., that do not need um, sunlight that often. So that's organisms are divided into strata, and they have adapted as such so that they can sustain in that vertical layer. That's called stratification of ecosystem. And it does not just happen in a pond or a ocean because it has depth. It also happens in terrestrial ecosystem like a forest. The biggest of the trees that reach the canopy are the ones that require the most sunlight. And the shrubs or the organisms that live on the forest floor that do not get that much sunlight, they have adapted to not need that much sunlight. They can do very well with very small sunlight available to them, or sometimes no sunlight at all. So what do? They find other ways